If you've ever felt like your brain is just stuck in overdrive, well, this is for you. We're going to dive into some simple, really practical advice from Buddhist wisdom to help quiet down that busy mind.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Your body is completely exhausted, you're ready for sleep, but your mind is just running a marathon. It's a feeling we all know, and man, is it frustrating.
And that's when your brain decides to play its greatest hits of awkward moments. You know, that one thing you said at work, or that weird face someone made when you told a joke. It just keeps looping over and over, and somehow it gets worse every single time.
And that's the real trap, isn't it? One tiny worry connects to another one, which sparks a new one. And then, boom, you look at the clock and it's 2 in the morning. You haven't slept, and you're way more stressed out than you were when you went to bed.
Yeah, let's call this what it is. The mind's midnight marathon. You're just running and getting absolutely nowhere. But here's where the Buddhist approach gets really interesting. It asks a pretty wild question. What if the goal isn't to stop running at all?
I mean, listen to that response. It completely flips the script. The problem isn't that your mind is thinking, that's literally its job. The real question is, why do we automatically assume that's a bad thing?
And that simple question leads us to this beautiful metaphor that can totally change your relationship with your own mind. Let's call it the river of thought.
This is it. This is the core idea. Your thoughts are just like a river. They flow constantly, naturally. They aren't some monster you have to fight or a current you have to dam up. Your only job is to not jump in.
So you've got 2 clear choices here, right? You can stand on the riverbank and just watch the thoughts go by like leaves floating on the water, or you can leap into the river, struggle against the current, get totally exhausted, and just drown in all that worry. The whole practice is about learning to stay on the bank.
Here's another great way to picture it. Imagine you're just sitting in a field next to a busy highway. Cars are zooming past. Some are red, some are noisy, some look really cool. But would you ever think about jumping into traffic to try and grab one? Of course not. You just let them pass. It's the same with your thoughts. Okay, so this idea of just watching, of not engaging, it leads us to another huge concept, the second arrow. This really helps us see how it's our reaction to things, not the things themselves, that causes most of our pain.
You know this feeling. You send an important text and you don't get a reply. Crickets. Now, in reality, literally nothing has happened. But in your mind, you've come up with 10 different scenarios where you've messed everything up. That anxiety, that's the suffering created by the mind. It's not real.
And that's the key right there. There's what actually happens, and then there's the story we tell ourselves about what happens. And all that pain from overthinking, it lives in the story, not the event.
So there's this classic parable of the 2 arrows. The first arrow is just life. Something painful happens, you get bad news, you make a mistake, and it hurts. You can't avoid that arrow. But the second arrow, that's the one we shoot at ourselves. It's the arrow of, why did this happen to me? Of replaying it endlessly, of judging ourselves. And here's the thing, that second arrow is completely optional.
And that is just such a powerful, freeing idea. You can't control what life throws at you, but you absolutely have a choice about whether or not you're going to keep hurting yourself with overthinking after the fact.
Okay, so that's the theory, that's the what and the why. But how do we actually do this? Let's get into some super simple, practical tools you can use to stay on that riverbank.
Think of this as your little emergency toolkit. When you feel your mind starting to spiral, just bring yourself back to right now. Feel the chair you're sitting in, listen to the sounds in the room, or ask yourself a super simple question. Is this thought actually helping me right now? Most of the time, the answer is no. You can also just gently name it, oh, there's a worrying thought. It gives you a bit of distance. And if all else fails, just take one slow breath. That's it. That's the whole practice.
And your attitude here is everything. Think about it. If you yell at a little puppy that wanders off, it's just going to get scared and more frantic. But if you gently and kindly call it back, eventually it learns. Your mind is exactly the same. It responds to kindness and patience, not to being yelled at.
So let's wrap this all up by talking about the actual goal here. And I'll give you a spoiler. The goal is not to become some kind of Zen master with a perfectly empty brain.
Seriously, I really want you to hear this. If your mind is busy, it does not mean you are broken. It means you have a human brain. That's what human brains do. They think, they worry, they plan. They're just trying to keep you safe, even if they go a little overboard sometimes.
And this is where so many of us get tripped up. We think the goal is perfection, to stop all thoughts.
and that just sets you up for failure. The real goal isn't perfection, it's peace. It's about changing your relationship with your thoughts so they don't control you anymore.
And maybe this is the most important takeaway of all. So much of our overthinking comes from this pressure to figure out our entire lives, like right now. You don't have to. You only ever have to handle this one moment, right here.
So I'll leave you with a question to take with you. The next time you feel that familiar spiral of worry starting up, just ask yourself, what second arrow will I choose not to shoot this time? What might it feel like to just let that thought float on by and to stay peacefully on the riverbank?